Okay, welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video. Going to do a taste test here. In fact, it's a taste comparison. My mother got me Drambuie whiskey liqueur, and it reminds me that my start in my sort of whiskey journey began with this Irish Mist, which is another whiskey liqueur, and I kind of reached perfection when I discovered, thanks to my aunt, Glayva, which is another whiskey liqueur, tangerine, this one. And I was just thinking to myself, you know, I think the last time, I think I was in a bar and they had Drambuie there, and as I was trying it, I thought, this tastes almost exactly like Glayva and or Irish Mist. So I thought, well, since I've now got a bottle of Drambuie, why don't I do a full-on comparison? I'm going to try all three of these things side by side and see if I can tell the difference. Work, 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 work. All right, well, let's do this chronologically by my experience. I'm going to start off, let's just do a pour, because I want to see, is it visibly much different? Let's give ourselves a good, healthy dose of Irish Mist. Love this stuff. Very sweet, very honey kind of an angle. Next, we will go with Glayva. Absolutely perfection, this stuff. I really, really love it. Kind of like the Irish Mist, but with a bit more, I don't know, a bit more spice, a bit more, more of a cinnamon vibe to it. So how will Drambuie look in comparison? These ones are quite orangey and a sort of golden amber nectar here. But is Drambuie similar in appearance? I seem to remember it was from that one time I had it recently. And this is from the Isle of Skye, this stuff. I've been to the Isle of Skye. And like I say, I've had Drambuie once relatively recently, but can I remember it? Certainly compared to these two? Heck no. So, let's pop it open. Oh, it's quite a lot lighter. Actually, it's almost more yellow. Just had a sniff in the bottle there. It smells very Glayva-esque. But yeah, I don't know if that's coming out or not, but that is a very yellow color compared to Glayva with its much more orange. Yeah, you can see there's definitely more of an orange with Glayva, and Irish Mist, orange again. In fact, I would say Irish Mist and Glayva practically the same color. Well, no, maybe this one is just a little, I mean, it's pretty close. Irish Mist slightly lighter than Glayva by a hair, but Drambuie much more of a yellowish color, and more like a lemonade in a way. All right, let's try them out. Okay, we have our trifecta of whiskey liqueurs here. Now, how should I best go about testing this? I guess I'll go from oldest and then try a Drambuie last. So let's have a little taster of the Irish Mist. I've had it before. I've done a video about it before. Honey, apples, a little bit of raisin flavor. Goes down very smoothly. If you want to try out what it's like to get into the whiskey world, these guys will set you free, or they will not set you wrong. I recommend starting with Irish Mist. It goes down very easily. Now, before I dig into any of the Glayva, I have a little water to clear the palate. Should work, at least for this purpose. Now, Glayva, my pride and joy, the one that I enjoy the most. Yes, much more of a cinnamon vibe, much more of a spicy cloves, apple, but like maybe more apple that's been around for a while, like I don't want to say a rotten apple, but I mean an apple that has nicely matured, whereas this one maybe a little bit more fresh off the tree and you just bit into it. Maybe like a Granny Smith, and this is more like well, I don't really have a good analogy, but there is an apple comparison, or there is an apple vibe for both of them. This one has more orange flavor. This one has more orange zest to it. So now, having cleaned the palate out, let's try Drambuie. What is this like in comparison to those two guys? actually very much like Glayva. I've cleaned the palate, but like this is like a thicker Glayva. It's more oily, like on a texture front. It has a little bit of difference. The Glayva, in comparison to this, as far as the texture is concerned, less oily, almost thinned out with a bit of water from a texture. Flavor-wise, though, that's very, very close to Glayva. A little bit more peppermint, but you really got to reach for it. You know, caramel, candy, kind of right on the outskirts. I'm going to try that compared to Glayva again, because having that clean the palate, just at the very end there, a little, very small bit of like a chocolate note in a way. Let's go back to Glayva. Try this out in comparison. Those two are incredibly close. Incredibly close. Irish Mist, different beast entirely. No, don't even need to do a comparison. But these two, what is... Okay, so Glayva has, I think I mentioned on the front, yeah, tangerine, honey spice, mandarin, etc. Whereas Drambuie, honey, herbs, and spices. Oh, whiskey... Aged Scotch whiskey heather, honey, herbs, and spices. It would be interesting, now there's obviously no ingredients listed, but it would be interesting to compare what goes into Glayva versus what goes into Drambuie, because honestly, let me just, for science, you know, work. Let me just have a bit more. Okay. I'm imprinting into my head, that is what Glayva is. There's the code, there's the DNA of Glayva. Got it. Right. I'm keeping it in my head. No chocolatey notes, no thickness. No, I mean, a hint of peppermint, not very strong. Raisiny. Drambuie, man, that is virtually identical. I would challenge anybody. If you were in a bar and you had... If somebody poured you Glayva and they mistakenly poured you a Drambuie, I don't think even a real aficionado of Glayva would be able to tell the difference. Maybe that's mean of me to say, but I really don't... I don't detect that strong of a difference between Glayva and Drambuie. Not much. And oiliness, for sure... in a nice way, like a coats your tongue in the back of your throat, like in a really appealing way. Whereas Glayva's a lot more watered down. But Drambuie, there is a hint of a chocolate note around the very outer edges, but wow. Unless you were doing an A-B comparison like I am, I don't think you could tell the difference. I'm quite surprised. So, I like Drambuie. I mean, God, as a big fan of Glayva, I'm going to have no problem polishing this guy off. It's practically the same. I'm not detecting much of a difference. Irish Mist, very much more honey, very much more kind of orangey sort of vibe. Even though this is the one with the tangerine. But these two, honestly, these two are almost identical. I'm really quite surprised. Thicker, chocolatey on the very outskirts. The same thing without the thickness and without the chocolate. Otherwise, they both have a spiciness. They both have that cinnamon vibe, raisins, and a little bit of, I don't know, maybe orange zest, kind of, in a way. I'm really grabbing at straws there. But yeah, I do not detect much of a difference. And you know what's funny? Oh, okay, I was going to say, they're the same size bottle, but they look totally different. No, this is a 375 ml, this is a 750 ml. So this guy is twice as big as this guy. I was thinking, that's some Doctor Who TARDIS work there. If you can make that much booze, seem to be the same quantity as that. Anyway, I've obviously had too much to drink now, so I'm going to stop there. Drambuie. Love it because I love Glayva, and it's practically the same thing, in my opinion. Alright, well, I'm going to leave it there until next time. We'll see you down the rabbit hole.